Mira Vance never believed in cursed objects. She believed in patterns, evidence, logic, things that could be filed away and explained. But the moment she unfolded the map made of bark, something about it felt wrong, like it was still alive in her hands. There were markings that shifted slightly when she wasn't looking directly at them, as if the map was aware of being studied. Cole Redding had seen symbols like this before, in places that ended with silence and abandoned camps. He didn't want to admit it, but every instinct told him to walk away. Still, treasure hunters don't walk away from promises, especially ones that whisper of something buried beyond understanding. Dr. Elias Thorn called it collective obsession, groups of people convincing themselves of meaning where none existed. But even he hesitated when the coordinates lined up perfectly with previous failed expeditions he had studied, all ending at the same detail no one could explain. And then there was Sable, waiting at the edge of the forest like they had already arrived yesterday. The forest did not feel like a place. It felt like a condition. One step inside, and reality seemed to lose structure. Distances stopped behaving correctly. Paths that should have been straight bent back toward themselves without warning. The air felt heavier, as if it remembered every breath ever taken there. Mira noticed the first impossible detail when her written notes no longer matched what she remembered writing. Words rearranged themselves into phrases she hadn't intended, forming warnings she couldn't understand until it was too late. Cole tried to keep track of direction, but even his instincts began to fail. Dr. Thorn's instruments confirmed what they refused to believe: they were circling something that didn't want to be approached directly. And Sable? Sable never hesitated. Never checked a compass. Never looked uncertain. They walked as if the forest was not unfamiliar at all, but remembered when they found the tree, nobody needed to confirm it. They all knew instantly. It stood wrong against the sky, too still, too perfect, as if it had been placed there rather than grown. The bark was dark and smooth, almost polished, and the symbol from the map was carved into its base like a signature. Cole was the first to dig, almost desperately, as if effort alone could break the feeling building in his chest. Dr. Thorn followed with scientific urgency, refusing to accept symbolism over substance. Mira documented everything, though her recorder began repeating faint echoes of voices that hadn't been spoken yet, but the deeper they dug, the less natural the ground became. Roots did not behave like roots. They folded and looped in unnatural directions, forming patterns that suggested intention rather than growth. And then something answered from beneath, not a sound from nature, but an imitation of one of them laughing. The second map did not feel new. It felt remembered. Its edges were worn as if handled too many times, by too many hands that no longer existed. On its surface were names, some familiar, some impossible, and a few that Mira was certain belonged to them. Dr. Thorn stopped speaking much after that. His certainty began to fracture, replaced by quiet observation that turned increasingly uneasy. Cole insisted they were close, that repetition meant proximity, not failure, but Sable finally broke their silence, speaking like someone reciting something long known rather than newly discovered. They said every search follows the same path. Every discovery leads back to the same point. And that night, the forest shifted again without warning, as if resetting its position in reality. The tree changed overnight. New carvings appeared in its surface, names that were not there before. Some matched their own handwriting. Some matched memories they had not spoken aloud. It was as if the tree was writing them back into itself. Cole tried to destroy the markings, but the bark absorbed the blade like it had never been attacked at all. Dr. Thorn began recording coordinates obsessively, only to realize they matched every place he had ever claimed to discover anything significant. Mira started to understand something she didn't want to accept. The tree wasn't recording them. It was anticipating them, and Sable stood closer than before, though none of them remembered them moving. Beneath the tree, they finally found what they had been searching for. But it was not treasure in any meaningful sense. It was a chamber that felt less like a location and more like a fold in existence itself. Inside were objects from different times, different places, different histories that should never have intersected. Yet none of it felt valuable. It felt collected. Catalogued. Cole called it proof. Dr. Thorn called it impossible. Mira said nothing at first, because the chamber walls already carried a message that seemed carved into reality itself: every search returns to root. And above them, the tree began to move, not growing, not living, but unfolding like something remembering how it was before it became still. Outside the chamber, the forest no longer looked like a forest. It looked duplicated. The same trees repeated in patterns too precise to be natural. Mira realized they were not separate entities, they were iterations. Cole tried to leave, but every direction folded back into itself. Dr. Thorn's instruments failed completely, replaced by endless streams of names, as if the forest itself was listing everyone who had ever been there. Sable finally spoke the truth plainly. The tree does not grow. It repeats. And with that statement, something in the ground beneath them shifted, like memory being triggered. There was no final escape. Only return. Cole stopped resisting first, as if something in him had already accepted this outcome long before it happened. Dr. Thorn's fear turned quiet, replaced by the hollow understanding that logic had reached its limit here. Mira tried to hold on to documentation, but her notes had already begun writing themselves in advance. Every word she attempted to record was already waiting for her to catch up to it. Sable stood at the base of the tree, unchanged, as always. And as the tree opened, not like wood, but like memory unfolding, the last thought Mira had was not fear. It was recognition, because every search had already ended here before.